What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I am back with another video. This time once again, we're looking at one of the best NBA players of all time, that being Steph Curry. And most recently, Steph and his Warriors team made their 6th finals in 8 years, and he has a very good shot of winning his 4th championship. Now with that being the case, a lot of NBA fans, NBA analysts, are saying Steph Curry is a top 10 player of all time, and even top 5. Now I do have to preface my comments by saying Steph Curry, in my personal view, right now is top 15 and one of the best players of all time. But when talking about a top 10 list, those guys are the cream of the crop and quite literally the GOATs of NBA history. And for a modern day player to crack that list, their resume has to be damn near perfect. As a lot of those guys in the top 10, they've been there for 10, 15, 25, even 30 years. And to be very clear, saying Steph Curry isn't a top 10 player of all time is not hating and it's not disrespect. As once again, being top 10 is nearly impossible for any NBA player. And I'm sure you guys watching this video, you have your own top 10 all-time list that is definitely different than mine. But I think looking at the overall players on that list, I think everyone has the same guys. At the top in tier 1, I would have Michael Jordan, LeBron James, as well as Kareem. In that tier 2 category, I'd have Magic, Kobe, Duncan, Hakeem, Shaq, and Bird. And depending on who you are, you have Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell sprinkled in that tier 2 or possibly that tier 1. So that right there is 11 NBA legends who I would say right now at this point are greater than Steph Curry. And looking at the top of the list, guys like Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Magic, Kobe, and Duncan, I think all those guys are solidified as being better and greater than Steph Curry. Now, the guys in the quote-unquote conversation are people like Hakeem, Shaq, Bird, Wilt, as well as Russell. And in the following minutes, I'm going to debunk any claims that Steph Curry is better or greater than those players. And when looking at my own personal list, I think Larry Bird is a borderline top 5 player of all time. But a lot of the Steph Curry fans, the top 10 arguers, they're saying Steph Curry already has surpassed Larry Legend. And I'm here to tell you that couldn't be further from the truth. As Larry Bird as an individual basketball player is still better than Steph Curry ever was. His scoring ability was right there with Steph, he was a better rebounder, a better passer, he was an elite shooter, and was the godfather of the 50-40-90 club. And if you want to speak about defense, Larry Bird still was a much better defender than one Steph Curry. And looking at prime Larry Bird in the playoffs, from 84 to 90 before his injuries, he averaged 26, 10, and 7 on 48, 36, and 90 splits. He was top 10 in points per game, top 10 in assists, as well as rebounds during that time period. And of course, you guys know prime Bird won multiple championships, MVPs, as well as finals MVPs. And if you really want to pin down what a prime Larry Bird was, look at 84 to 88 when he won 3 straight MVPs. During that stretch, he averaged 27, 10, and 7 on 51, 40, and 90 splits. Larry Bird for roughly 5 years was 27, 10, 7 on 50, 40, 90 splits. Wrap your head around that and tell me Steph Curry was better than this guy. And even going more in depth with it, Larry Bird for a 9-year stretch was top 4 MVP voting every single year. Also during that stretch, his Boston team never won less than 55 games. And if you want to know how impactful a basketball player Larry Bird was, looking at Boston before him compared to with him, in 1979, they only won 29 games and had one of the worst records in the entire NBA. Now look at 1980, they went from a 29-win team to winning 61 games just like that. That's how impactful Larry Bird was even as a rookie. And looking past Larry Bird, one guy they're trying to kick out of the top 10 is Hakeem Olajuwon. And I think Hakeem objectively is one of the best big men of all time and solidified a top 10 player until further notice. As in his prime in the playoffs, from 85 to 95, he averaged 28.3 points per game, 11.9 boards, 3.3 assists, 3.7 blocks, 1.7 steals on 53% shooting. During that decade stretch, he was top 5 in points per game, rebounds, as well as blocks. And from a two-way standpoint, outside of Michael Jordan, he was the best player in the entire world. And that is one thing I do want to keep nailing home. The guys ahead of Steph Curry all time, most of them were all-time or decent defenders. And when speaking of Hakeem Olajuwon, you can look at his accolades. He was a 9-time All-Defensive Player. He won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. He won back-to-back Finals MVPs. He was a 1-time MVP. His resume is stacked with all-time great hardware. But what makes him one of the all-time great players is his 2 championships he won back-to-back. And looking at both those championship runs, objectively speaking, they're 10 times harder than any Steph Curry championship. In 1994, Hakeem had no All-Star teammate and still made it to the finals and beat Patrick Ewing's Knicks. And then 95, as a 6th seed, they beat 4 teams that won 55-plus games, including 2 teams that won 60-plus. His only All-Star teammate was an aging Clyde Drexler with a Houston team that was far from great or all-time dominant. And one of the popular phrases we always hear is that every championship isn't created equally. And we're looking at those 2 rings. Once again, compared to Steph's championships, they far outweigh them. And you could really argue Hakeem's 2 rings are 2 of the 3 toughest championships in NBA history, up there with Dirk in 2011. So once again, in summary, Hakeem, on both ends of the floor, he was dominant, and for his back-to-back championships, he quite literally carried his team on his back like Steph Curry never had to do. And speaking of an all-time great big, one guy in the bottom half of my top 10 is Shaquille O'Neal. And if you're going to put Steph in that top 10, Shaq or one of these guys has to come out. And to remind you guys how good Shaq was, let's look at his prime from 95 to 03. During that time period, he won 3 championships, he made 4 finals, and very nearly won the first ever unanimous MVP. And looking at his playoff stats, he averaged 28.3 points per game, 13 boards, 3 assists, 2 blocks, on 56% shooting. For that near-decade stretch, he was top 10 in scoring, rebounds, as well as blocks. And at his absolute peak, he was simply unstoppable. And if you want to speak of overall team dominance, the 01 Lakers are arguably the most dominant team in NBA history, only losing 1 game en route to the championship. And when speaking of all-time great players, one thing you have to look at is how good they were on the biggest stage. And Shaq in his prime in the finals was an absolute beast and better than Steph could ever imagine. As looking at 95, 2000, 01 as well as 02, Shaq in those series averaged 34.2 points per game, 14.6 boards, 4.1 assists, on nearly 60% shooting. Try to tell me with a straight face that Steph Curry is better or greater than this guy ever was in his career. I'm sorry, but it can't be done. And to really nail this point home, looking at Shaq's overall resume, he was a 15-time All-Star, 14-time All-NBA member, 3-time All-Defensive, 3-time Finals MVP, all consecutive, 2-time scoring champ, and 1-time MVP. Once again, looking at basketball on both ends of the floor, Shaq objectively was better than Steph Curry, he was a better defender, he was more dominant, and at his peak, was better in the NBA Finals. Now I think looking at those 3 players, that being Larry Bird, Shaq, and Hakeem, it's pretty obvious those 3 guys are better than Steph Curry. And even looking at someone like Wilt Chamberlain, his overall basketball resume still is greater than Steph Curry's, being an 11-time rebound leader, 7-time scoring champ, 4-time MVP, and averaging 30 points and 23 boards for his entire career. On top of him being an athletic freak, dominating on both ends, I think Wilt still is better than Steph Curry at this point in time. And even looking at someone like Bill Russell, his overall basketball resume and championship pedigree is still higher than Steph Curry's. Yes, he played in a different era, a different time period, there were less teams, less free agency, but Russell still won 8 straight championships and 11 total rings. And once again, I want to reiterate, I'm not bashing Steph Curry because once again, being a top 10 player is nearly impossible. And for some fans, arguing him being top 5 I think is ludicrous, as being a top 5 player would insinuate he's on the level of someone like Magic Johnson. And to put that debate to rest, looking at Magic's career, he was a 5-time champion, he made 9 finals appearances in 12 seasons, he won 3 MVPs in 4 years, 3 titles in 4 years, and not once won less than 54 games with his LA teams. And if you want to look to the biggest stage in the NBA Finals, once again Magic made 9 finals appearances. And in 8 of those series, averaged a double-double, with his best series coming in 87, where he averaged 26, 13, and 8 in an LA victory. Even looking the next year in 88, he averaged 21, 13, and 6, once again with LA winning their back-to-back championships. And even looking to his early career, in the NBA Finals, he was an absolute baller, averaging 22 points, 11 assists, and 9 boards, and in Game 6 minus Kareem, had 42 points, 15 boards, and 7 assists. Magic Johnson pretty clearly was a greater and better player than someone like Steph Curry. And really for Steph, what it comes down to is there not being enough space in that top 10, as once again his resume is all-time great in the top 1% of NBA players. But if you really want to break it down and get critical, he has some pretty big playoff blunders and games in the playoffs where he disappears or doesn't show up to his full potential. And looking at his playoff resume in his prime, in 2013, he lost in the second round, 2014 the first round, 2016 they lost to Cleveland, blowing a 3-1 lead, 2019 they lost to the Raptors, and in both 2020 and 2021, his Warriors teams would miss the playoffs. And of course I won't hold 2020 against him, as he only played 5 games, but looking at 2017 as well as 2018, in both those championship series, Steph Curry was not Golden State's best player. And I would argue, looking at those series, he wasn't better than LeBron or Kevin Durant. Now, for an all-time great top 10 player, not being a top 3 player in your series for 2 championships, I think, is a little bit of a knock and a blemish on your resume. So once again, with that final point being made, I don't think Steph Curry is top 10 all time, and I definitely don't think he's top 5, better than Magic, Duncan, Hakeem, Bird, or Shaq. I think those guys still are a notch above someone like Steph Curry. Now with that being said, as always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Do you think Steph's top 10? Do you think he's top 5? Let me know your thoughts below, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.